If you've used Wordfence for your website security on WordPress, you may have seen this screen at some point or another, or someone on your team has. This is one of the first times I've seen it, generally because I'm pretty good about remembering my passwords and I have used password managers before, but just the other day on one of my personal sites, I actually forgot my password that I had recently changed, and I have my how many times it takes to lock somebody out set very low because I get a lot of hacking attempts and I don't like to waste server resources, so I set it to lock after 3 attempts. I think the default is way higher than that. Now, unfortunately, because I've had a lot of issues where a hacker will be locked out but then they'll immediately try again, I've had to set the amount of time that I lock people out up to several days instead of just a matter of hours, which has helped a ton with hacking attempts. Unfortunately, when it's me that is locked out, I can't be in a situation where I am locked out of the site for days on end. Now, I know what you're going to say. They have this option right here where you put in your email address and you send an unlock email. And when I have had to do this for clients, it's worked without a hitch, and it's great. You get an email, you click a link, bam, you're right back into the site and your IP is unblocked, and then everything is good. The problem I have had this specific time is that I put in my email address and say to send, and I never get that email. It just doesn't come through. Or it comes through like 4 hours later. But it even tells you right here that that email is only valid for 30 minutes, so if it's taking 4 hours to send it, it's useless. I did some separate research on why that is, and they give you a whole bunch of steps about how you can set up your WordPress site to email you via SMTP, which can be more reliable as a method. But my issue that I'm trying to share here with people, this isn't meant just as a how-to video. This is to share where a lot of the existing how-to content that is out there about this can be insufficient if you're having the problem the way that I'm having it. And if anybody is in the boat that I'm in, to kind of walk through what that's looked like. Even if you could do the SMTP thing for the email, with all of the steps that you're starting to have to jump through, you get into, look, Wordfence is a great security plugin, but how many extra steps and other plugins and other settings do I want to have to use just to make this thing work? And here's some other strange behavior that I've noticed. So I got around it initially the same way that they tell you to get around it, which is go in your hosting, go into your file manager where you actually see the WP content folder for your site, and then navigate to your plugins and see where it has Wordfence right here. You can right click on it and say rename, and they say to rename it to anything other than what it is. I just put a 1 after it, and you say confirm. WordPress only knows how to use Wordfence if it's the folder name that it's supposed to be. So the minute you rename it, it basically deactivates the plugin. Now, without any plugin saying that you're locked out, you can go back to your WP admin login screen and log in without a hitch. Now, what they've said to do is the minute you're in your dashboard in the site, go back into here and rename it to what it's supposed to be. And then this tricks it, so now you're in your site, but you have your security back on. The challenge with this, if you're in the position that I've been in, where it's set to block you for several days, is the minute you log out of the site, you are re-locked out because this plugin is back on. And I have not found any good answers for how to address that. And here's what's frustrating. When I get those unlock emails, when they eventually come, they have a link in it to say, if you want to reset all lockouts, yours and anyone else's, click this link. If you want to whitelist this IP and stop locking out just this one, click here. So I know they have the option built into the plugin to do exactly what we need them to do in this case. But what's vexing is when you are in the settings of Wordfence on the inside of the site, I have combed through every settings menu and every option, and I don't see anything about resetting all the lockouts or anything. I've gone through their help forums. I've even commented to a YouTube video that was about this exact problem, except the video did not go as deep as we need it to when we're in this situation. And so I commented there and was simply told a canned answer to go to the forums, which is kind of useless. And that's a whole side conversation I could have about if you have a YouTube channel that's teaching people how-tos on using your product, it sends the message that you want to actually solve their problems there. And when they comment asking questions and you tell them, I'm not going to talk to you here, talk to me somewhere else, that's kind of crappy customer service. But anyway, Here's another thing that troubles me. I noticed this one just on a lark. It says attempt to return to the admin login page. You may still be locked out. I clicked it the other day just to see, all right, is it going to take me back to the login page, or is it just going to reaffirm that I'm locked out? Watch what happens if I click it. Now notice that I have, the last time I was in the site, done a formal log out. If I click it, look at this. I am right into the dashboard of the site. That troubles me because I didn't have to type in my username and password. Why am I right in the administrative area? Now, for clarity, one thing I did do to attempt to solve this is I whitelisted my IP. And so I went into the firewall settings. I went to all firewall options. And then where it says allow listed, that's basically whitelisting IP addresses that bypass all rules, I did punch in my IP address here. But that's still confusing because what I would have thought that would have meant is if this IP is about to be locked out, don't actually lock it out. And as a side note, this did not work for my problem. Every time I log out of the site, which I can show you here, click log out, look what happens. I am re-locked out. So whitelisting my IP is not preventing me from being locked out, but oddly, it does seem to make it so that when I try to click this link to go to the admin page, I don't even need my login credentials. I just log straight in. That troubles the heck out of me, A, because how is that even working as far as WordPress goes? And that might theoretically mean that if a hacker could figure out my IP address and spoof themselves as that, they don't even have to know my username and password now. They could just get right into the site. Previously, I thought Wordfence was a great security plugin. It's really helped lock down a lot of my client sites, and I install it on almost every client site that I work on, and it would be a shame for me to have to find an alternative and now go through all of the sites that I administrate and have to go through that process. But I just really find this is a fairly new blog that I just started that I'm trying to ramp up. That's why we have pretty low traffic counts here. And I'm having a really terrible time with this site. I mean, I can get into the site, as you can see, by clicking that link. So but the way that I get into the site is pretty troubling and confusing, and I'm not comfortable with it, and I don't know that I'm going to leave it like this for long, because I just don't know with the way that it's auto-logging me in if it's doing that for somebody else, and if this is meant to be a money site, I just cannot put myself in a situation where, ironically, I installed Wordfence to make it harder for hackers to get in, and I might have, in doing these things, trying to solve this problem, have opened myself up in a real new way, or at the very least, without some weird fluke from happening. The other thing that is erroneously going on that I, tried to solve here is it doesn't ever seem to be letting go of the lockout here. I set it for 2 days. It has now been over 2 days, and I am still locked out. I've even gone into the settings where you can control how long it locks somebody out, and I've lowered that to 5 minutes, thinking, ultimately I'm not going to leave it there, but maybe if I set it to 5 minutes, it'll reduce my lockout time to 5 minutes, and then I won't be locked out. It seems like it keeps the amount of time that you're locked out from whatever the setting was when you were first locked out, so even if it's changed after the fact, it's still the previous amount of time. But like I said, the previous amount of time was 2 days, and it's now been over 2 days. And I still can't get in. So it seems bugged where I'm just permanently locked out now, but then also am able to log into the site without login credentials. So some weird stuff is happening with this plugin, and I'm going to keep poking around with it, and I'll post more information if I figure anything out. But like I said, if I can't sort this out soon, this is going to be a real shame, because this is a plugin I have thought was great for a couple of years now, and I recommend it to all of my clients, and I am not going to be able to recommend it anymore if I can't get some answers to this. And thus far, looking up help stuff in forums and videos from Wordfence even itself have not been very helpful. Anyway, I guess this is meant as more of a discussion than a how-to, since I've sort of cobbled my way through this problem without all of the answers from elsewhere on the web. If somebody has encountered this exact problem and has found a way to reset the lockouts, please leave that in the comments. That would be great. But otherwise, if you've been in a similar position to me where you've tried some of the file manager and stuff and like me, you've remained locked out. This hopefully will serve as the start of a good discussion for all of us to find some answers.